I'm Doug Lichtman, and in this copyright video, I want to introduce the law, the legal framework that we'll be using to think about the copyright system across all of our later detailed examples. To start with the legal framework, I want to start with the Constitution ever so briefly, but I want to start with the Constitution because there's actually something cool buried in there. Copyright law is specifically authorized in the Constitution. So is patent law, it turns out, through this clause. It's Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8. But check out what the Constitution says. It says that Congress is allowed to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. Now, there's a lot of words there, but let's focus in on a couple key moves. First, copyright law is designed to promote these wonderful things that we're going to be looking at. This is a law that is trying to create incentives for folks to do these works of authorship, to create plays and books and the like. And right away in the Constitution, it's framed that way. You're allowed to do what, Congress? To promote progress. And again, patent law is in the same clause. I want inventions, I want works of authorship. The idea is Congress is empowered to create this body of law, not just to give out legal rights to random folks. We're trying to promote progress. Interesting to the how. The Constitution says we're going to promote progress. How? By securing for limited times exclusive rights. This wasn't a foregone conclusion. At the time when the Constitution is being drafted, there are other places in the world that are encouraging innovative activity, encouraging culture, not by giving out exclusive rights, but instead by giving out what we'd call prizes. Right? You'd say, hey, I'd really like it if someone could figure out how to do navigation on the oceans. We're sending a lot of ships out. We'd like them to get to their destination appropriately. I'd really like someone to figure this out. I'm, as the government, going to announce a prize. If someone figures out how to do navigation, jumps in a ship, proves to me it works, I will write a check. I will give out cash as the reward. And then interestingly enough, once I give the reward, I will then release that information to the public. It's a prize system. And the key moving parts are the government announces what they want. I'd like a technology to help me navigate the oceans. They announce what they want. They offer up a prize. I'll give this much money. And that's how they incentivize progress. Not by giving out rights, exclusive rights to the inventor, exclusive rights to the author. Nope. Instead, it's a prize system. We give you money, not exclusives. And the good part of that is, and then the thing can be given out to everyone for free. Right? We don't have to have it locked up. Right? A downside of exclusive rights is somebody has control. They could say no. They don't let other people use it. They limit it. They sell it. In a prize system, which a lot of countries were using at this time, we don't have those drawbacks. We announce a prize, we get the achievement, and we give it away. Now, I said all this to make a prize system sound good, but of course, the constitutional system probably much, much better. And here's why. Under our system, where we give out exclusive rights for limited times, in essence what we did is we let 1,000 flowers bloom. A prize system required the government to figure out what the government wanted. You had to say, I want to cross the oceans, or I'd like a new opera, or whatever it is. It required the government to identify what things to offer prizes for. And that's some version of a problem. The government might not be good at figuring out what we need. The government might abuse that power, give the money to its friends, pick the projects it thinks it wants for other reasons. Having the government make the definition of all the things we want, indeed even a well-meaning, well-motivated government, they're going to have trouble figuring out the hundreds of thousands to millions and tens of millions of things we all want over any period of time. By contrast, this system said, look, 1,000 flowers bloom. If you as an author, if you as an inventor, if you have some idea, if you can either do it on your own or convince investors to back you, so you have the funding to do it, great, we'll give you rights in whatever you do. You may reap what you sow. If you invent something not so great, if you write a book that no one's interested in, it's on you. If you do something that people really like, great, you'll be rewarded. But we let you make the call. You might know stuff we don't know. You might know your market, your area. You might have a creative idea that we wouldn't appreciate. Great. We're not giving you out money, a prize system. All we're doing is giving exclusive rights to what you've created. Reap what you sow. And indeed, obviously some people invest in things that aren't great ideas. My favorite example is actually in the patent system. Some group of inventors invented diapers for birds. Okay, like I get the idea why that might in theory be lovely, but in practical terms, silly. But fine, this system, a system that says, go out there, authors, go out there, inventors, you get exclusive rights to whatever you do, it allows us to take the risks on our own. We figure out what we think is the right answer, we give it a shot. It's a really cool and elegant setup. And then note that although in 2025 and 2026 it feels a little messy, over the long history of the United States, we supplement this system with, in essence, government prizes. Right? We've always, as a government, gone ahead and deployed money to support new inventions, to support art. Think the National Endowment of the Arts, the National Institutes of Health, the Department of Defense and its spending on technology, on and on. Right? The federal government spends an incredible amount of money supporting universities, supporting various creative projects, supporting art like operas and so on. We don't only do this. That might not be a great system, because a market-based system, which will be awesome for a lot of things, probably leaves some things out. There are probably some things the market system doesn't do a good job at encouraging. But we have historically in the United States taken this as our baseline. Most of the activity, most of the cultural creations, most of the innovative ideas, yeah, they come from this system. Most of it comes this way, but then we show up and we fund a bunch of other stuff that we think won't come from this system adequately. NASA shows up and writes big checks to get us to the moon and maybe someday to Mars. We don't think this system will do that adequately, so we do it on the side. Think too about charities. It's another way, it's kind of like the prize system. A charitable group might come forward and say, we're going to support opera or a local community theater or some sort of dance troupes that maybe the market wouldn't adequately support. A system of copyright not going to do enough. And so I want to point out how elegant the constitutional language was, realizing that a great way to do this is exclusive rights to the author or inventor for a limited time. That's how we'll get them to do the stuff. And then I also want to celebrate that we don't only do this. In combining these systems, a prize-like approach through government funding and charitable work and the like, plus the baseline of a market-based approach. And all of that is acknowledged in the Constitution. From there, we actually have law written by Congress, and the Copyright Act is fantastic. When you look at the Copyright Act, and we'll largely be talking about the Copyright Act of 1976, which came into effect in 1978, and still largely is intact today, it's a beautifully written piece of law. You can literally read the sentences, lean back and say, yeah, I think I know what Congress wanted me to worry about. And indeed, not only is it well written and very readable, it also really has survived the test of time. It's remarkable that law that was written in 1976, yeah, it's been amended here and there, but it largely is still working for us, even after so much has changed. The internet, AI, like think of how much has changed since 1976. Yet here we are. And so the Copyright Act of 1976, a lot of the fodder in the videos will come from that federal law. And I just want to show you a few pieces now just to get us started. And the first piece I want to show you is section 102A. 102A says copyright protection subsists, and just pause there. Copyright protection subsists. It's automatically there. 102A doesn't say copyright protection may be applied for, or you can ask for it. Nope. Copyright protection automatically exists. Copyright protection subsists. When? Well, in original works of authorship fixed in a tangible medium of expression. Those are the two pieces. Copyright is automatic if you show me an original work of authorship. And we'll learn in a later video, but what that means is original in the sense that you didn't copy it, and original in the sense that it demonstrates at least a tiny, tiny shred of creativity. You can copy it, it's a little bit of creativity, boom. Copyright protection subsists in original works of authorship as long as they're fixed in a tangible medium. And even as long as is a misleading phrase. Fix it in a tangible medium, boom, you've got the copyright. And ironically enough, at that point, you could rip up the tangible medium and you're still okay. It's kind of just like a trigger. You get copyright as soon as you have an original work of authorship fixed in a tangible medium. A couple things to unpack there. First, what do we mean when we say fixed in a tangible medium? I'll show you in a second, but let me just point out to you, everybody does this naturally. Like, this isn't the burden. When you're writing a new story, the great American novel, you put it on a piece of paper. Boom, you fixed it. When you're filming something, you get everybody acting and speaking, and you film it. You put it on some resource from which it can be perceived again. When you're sitting at home at your computer and you're writing a poem, again, you type it onto the computer. It's stored in memory. This is a very easy requirement to meet. When we say fixed in a tangible medium, the only things we're pushing away are things that are completely uncaptured. Maybe completely impromptu speech, like just talking to the camera without notes, without recording it, completely just talking into the world, and once I say the words, they're gone. Fine, that might not be fixed. Or maybe like a sandcastle, because it wouldn't be very permanent. But in general, this is a really easy checkbox to clear. All you need is to do the normal stuff you're going to do anyway if you're making a work of authorship. Put it into some tangible form, at least briefly. You might be wondering why we bothered, why all these words and all this law. I think the best answer is Congress thought they had to. That constitutional phrase I showed you a moment ago talked about writings, talked about giving exclusive rights to authors in their writings. And I think Congress thought writings meant make it physical for at least a brief moment. And so Congress wrote about being fixed in a tangible medium just to make sure it aligned to the constitutional clause. 102A, again, copyright subsists in original works of authorship fixed in a tangible medium. What I wanted to show you, and this is the first time of many, a phrase like fixed in a tangible medium in the Copyright Act, you want to go back to Section 101. And I've got it in the next slide for us. Section 101 is a list of definitions. And when you see kind of an unusual word like fixed, or even some very normal words like the word public, you're going to want to go to Section 101 and read Congress's more precise definition. And I grabbed it here for this first example. Congress tells us that a work is fixed in a tangible medium of expression when its embodiment in a copy or phonorecord, by or under the authority of the author, is sufficiently permanent or stable to permit it to be perceived, reproduced, or otherwise communicated for a period of more than transitory duration. A lot of words. What's Congress saying? They're saying, hey, when we say fixed, we mean put it in some tangible form. And what are we going to judge? Well, any form from which it can be perceived, reproduced, or otherwise communicated for at least a little while. Doesn't even have to be very long. Congress defines what it means to be fixed. Note, by the way, this is consistent with my story to you. Congress is trying to make this really easy, right? Perceive it, fine. Reproduce, great. Transitory, no problem, right? Trying to make it really easy. But I point this out to you mainly to plant the seed with you. Watch Section 101. When you're reading this very readable law of the Copyright Act, make sure you're double checking there aren't some important definitions to help you have a sharper sense of what Congress wanted us to think about. That's 102A. At the end of 102A, copyright protection subsists, again, original works of authorship, blah, blah, blah. It says works of authorship include, and you get this list of kind of familiar things. Musical work, literary work, pantomime, graphical work, sound recordings, whatever. I slow down here only to make kind of the same point again. The word include turns out to have been defined in Section 101. Congress says that include means, in essence, here's some examples, feel free to add more. And so this part of 102A, I never really pay attention to it, and you don't either, because great, if you've got to work and you can look at the list and say, oh, I fit in bucket the 3, it's dramatic, great. But it doesn't matter. This was just Congress giving us a sense of what they were thinking about. When they said works of authorship, they were thinking about these very intuitive things, but you don't have to fit in one of these buckets, thanks to the word include. Include means these things, sure, but maybe others. And again, I mainly point this out to you because I want to get you sensitized to Section 101, get in the habit of looking for definitions, and then the word include shows up all over the place, and we're really going to use the flexibility it gives us. Here's some examples, but we can do more. Turns out to be one of the reasons why copyright law has done so well over time. It was flexible as written. All right, that's 102A. I also want to show you 102B. There we go. I want to show you 102B also. This is really important. In a prior video, I talked to you about two big ideas of copyright, the idea-expression dichotomy and independent creation. This is the idea-expression dichotomy. We protect expression, but we don't protect ideas. And yes, I'm going to refer to it as the idea-expression dichotomy, and dichotomy sounds like two and a clean line. You know, even from previous videos, it's not that clean of a line. You and I might fight over what's expression versus idea. But for now, all I want to show you is that inside Section 102B, Congress wrote this down. Congress says, in no case does copyright protection for an original work of authorship extend to any idea, procedure, process, system, method of operation, concept, principle, or discovery. In no case. This is Congress writing out for us the idea-expression dichotomy. We love to protect expression. We will not protect ideas. And indeed, in no case. That'll become important. If you're in a situation you say, in order to protect the expression, I might a little bit have to limit the flow of the idea. 102B says, sorry, we're not going to protect the expression. In no case. If there's some tension between our desire to protect expression and our commitment to always make sure ideas stay free for all to use, if there's a tension there, the ideas win. In no case are we going to tolerate copyright protection for expression locking up ideas. 102B from Congress. Just a little bit more I want to show you. This is Section 106. In a later video, we'll really dig into it. Indeed, it will be a series of later videos. But 106 is important to me because it lists the rights we give when we give out a copyright. I mentioned to you earlier that copyright is a property right. It's a right that says, hey, that's my property. You can't use that. You can't build on that. You can't make a t-shirt, whatever. 106 lists out the kinds of exclusive rights we're giving to copyright owners. And it says, and again, watch how beautifully readable this is too, subject to sections 107 through 122. It's like, hang on, there are going to be exceptions. Subject to some other stuff, the owner of a copyright under this title has the exclusive rights, this is their property right, has the exclusive rights to do and to authorize, and we get a list. The right to reproduce. Only I can photocopy the book. Only I can reproduce the music CD. The right to reproduce the copyrighted work in copies or phonorecords. I'll point out to you, by the way, copies and phonorecords are defined terms in Section 101. Notice a theme. It just means places that can hold works of authorship. A copy holds a work of authorship. A phonorecord holds a particular kind of work of authorship, one that you can hear. And so 106, Section 1, 106.1 says the right to reproduce the copyrighted work in these tangible ways. 106.2 is the right to prepare derivative work based upon the copyrighted work. Think prequels, sequels, lunchboxes, action figures, derivative work. As the copyright holder, I not only can stop you from reproducing, I also can stop you from making work based on mine. Derivative. 106.3, the right to distribute copies or phonorecords. And if you skim a little deeper into it, by rental, lease, or lending, right? It's a distribution right. I can actually control the flow of my work in commerce to some degree. We'll look at it. 106.4, in relevant categories, the right to perform my work, a play, a song maybe. 1065, the right to display my work. I did a word carving, I painted a painting, right? These rights, reproduction, derivative work, distribution, performance, display, this is our way of articulating, what do I give you? When I give you a copyright, what can you control? Not everything, it turns out. There are some things you cannot control, and that's fine. Because remember, we're making an incentive system. I want to give you just enough that you create the work and distribute it, but I don't need to give you more than that. These are the things roughly we're giving you, these rights. And note, by the way, I skipped section 1066. I do that intentionally. It's not what you think it is. 1066 has kind of morphed in its meaning as we moved into a world with things like Pandora and Spotify and Amazon Music and Apple Music and so on. It's roughly related to the movement of music online, but there's a whole can of worms there that I skipped for our purposes for now. For now, I want to introduce you to the rights as 1061 through 1065. Reproduction, derivative work, distribution, performance, and display. And again, later videos will dig into the details. Last piece of law I want to show you, just to get you oriented, is section 107. 107 is one of the exceptions to 106, and it's of enormous importance in the real world. Let me tell you about it, then we'll look at the words. 107 is what we call the fair use doctrine. And what's cool about it is Congress said you might see a situation in courts where there is expression, and it was copied without permission. And in those situations, I'm going to let you sometimes say, never mind, wave it off. It's not infringing. It's fair use. Congress, in essence, gave courts, judges, the power to lean back in their chair in specific cases and say, I understand that that is protected expression. It's original. It was fixed. I understand the other guy took it without asking, violating section 106. They reproduced it. They made a derivative. I understand all of that. But I'm not going to let the case go forward anyway. It's a fair use. We created some wiggle room. And then it's interesting to look at how Congress wrote it out. Start in that opening paragraph. It says, notwithstanding the provisions of section 106, this is an exception to the previous slide, an exception to the rights. The fair use of a copyrighted work, including such use by reproduction in copies or phonorecords, or by any other means specified in that section, for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, or research, is not infringement. And just pause there for a moment. Listen to that list, right? Criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, research. I always talk about this as a nod to First Amendment values. Right? The First Amendment was our commitment that Congress isn't supposed to make laws that restrict speech. And of course, copyright law is a law that restricts speech. We stop you from saying certain things that we've protected. And fair use in this paragraph comes in and says, hey, time out. We still haven't lost sight of the story behind the First Amendment. We wanted free speech because we wanted a healthy democracy, a healthy society. We wanted culture to move forward. We wanted science to move forward. We wanted the free flow of certain things, certain ideas. Teaching, research, comment, criticism, news. And so right away, when Congress is writing 107, creating a limiting factor, an escape valve for copyright law, they write us a bunch of sentences that I like to think of as First Amendment values. I'm not saying that all news reporting is fine. Of course it's not. You can imagine problematic cases. All teaching, no. We'll think about it. All I want to say is this paragraph flags for us a category of stuff where Congress says, let's be careful about limiting these things because that might undermine some other things we really care about. Congress then goes on and says, in determining whether the use made of a work in a particular case is a fair use, the factors to be considered shall include, and they list some. And you know what I'm going to say. Include. It's a really important word. We know what it means. It means here are some factors, but they're only examples. Feel free to add more. And in fair use, that's become an enormously important move. Congress listed some stuff, which we'll learn together in a future video, but they identified some things to watch for. How will you know if it's fair? How will you know if you're going to forgive someone for copying expression without permission? And they point out some things to watch for. But because the word include was used in Section 107, it means that me and you, when we see some new example, if there's some other good story to tell, some other reason why, look, in this instance, copyright law should back down, we can tell that story. Because Congress, in the end, said factors include, but you can have others. Fair use is a really important pressure release for the system that lets us waive off copyright in instances that might be really important to make other goals plausible. Community, commentary, news, all sorts of other things. We'll look at it in due course. All right, those are the key ideas I wanted to plant. We started with the Constitution, and then we moved through some of the key provisions of the Copyright Act of 1976.